Summertime, and the living's easy. Rallies on the microphone with Ross MG. All the people in the dance will agree that we're well qualified to represent the LBC. Me and Louis, we gonna run to the party and dance to the rhythm. It gets harder. Summertime.
Good evening. This is the Dominance Academy. I'm Mr. Justin. And it's Friday night. Probably not going to be a lot of folks coming through. But I will be on the Manhood is a Skill Set show tomorrow at 12 Eastern. So that'll be going down. But I want to pop this video in here real quick. Yeah, I think maybe it'll be a short one. We're not going to have much engagement. But it's about awakening that obedience. Awakening that obedience. Because guys, they'll often have, various ideas, questions like, how do I get her to do X, Y, Z? How do I get her to be like X, Y, Z? And I get it. I was once in that same kind of headspace of just wondering, like, what do I do? How do I do it? What's the next steps? What's the procedure? And I didn't really think that it had much to do with me. Internally, I thought that it had something to do with some sort of skill set or some kind of learned ability. That's what I thought. I really did. I thought it had something to do with that shit. Yeah, there we go. Light was too bright in my eyes. No, that's probably a little too dark though. So just turn it a little. Yeah, so I was in that same boat for a while and tried out all kinds of different stuff, as I'm sure many guys are, looking on YouTube for answers, and they're looking for ways they can bring about some sort of favorable outcome. Looking about how to be charismatic, because girls like charismatic guys. They'll do like the easy things, try to work on their fitness and work on their finances and stuff like that. They'll learn, how to be witty, right? How to, even like as far as like, how to do dirty talk and things like that. How to tell jokes or whatever. And it's all to get to this place of the girl just really liking him. And of course that is a problem in and of itself, because if you're concerned about, a girl liking you, then you're starting off on the wrong foot. Because it's a faulty desire. It's a faulty desire to have a girl wanting to like you. I really don't want a girl to like me. I mean, if she does, fine. That's her thing. You know what I mean? But it's not an outcome that I'm trying to promote or create. Yeah, what the outcome I'm trying to promote and create is a fullness of my expression. That's really what it is. Like, I don't want to have to edit the things that I think and the things that I say and the things that I do. I want to be able to show up authentically, with the actions and words that one does while interacting with a woman, without any filters. I want to just express myself in my fullness, and that's the only thing that I'm after. And so I'm not really trying to get her to like me. Sometimes she will, and sometimes she won't. And that's really the the reality behind it. And if you try to control that, usually it creates the opposite of what you're trying to create. You know, in your efforts to get a girl to like you, she usually ends up not liking you. Ask any nice guy. Ask any dude who's been obsessed with a girl, you know, who's done so much to try to get her attention, win her affection, and it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. You cannot put, and it's funny because, you know, a lot of times, like, the girls, when they really like a guy, a lot of times it's a guy who doesn't put in much effort at all. And then this is where you hear the things of where, you know, girls are saying, like, on social media or so, wherever, even in real life, they'll say, you know, I really want a guy who can put in effort, because the guy that she fell for didn't put in any effort. And to a certain degree, that was enticing. You know, that was a lure, because it was like, oh my gosh, he's not really paying attention to me. He's focused on other things, and he's giving his attention away to other things. And, you know, I want him to pay attention to me, just like these other guys do, you know? And there is a way to go about it where it's not, there's a way to go about it where you're not sacrificing in any one direction, because, you know, you can lose your footing if you share or give too much, and then you'll also lose footing if you don't give enough. And it's a weird balancing act. But the thing is that when you make your choices about, like, how you speak and how you act based around your own codes and your own principles, and your authentic expression, not your expression based around your unexamined issues, not expression based around your attachments, but something that's more pure, it works out very well. Because, you know, and I say it in that way because there might be a guy who has very little self-awareness, but he's completely, completely infected with nice guy disease, and doesn't know it. And so his expression to him is authentic, but it's really not. It's going through the filters of wanting to appeal to the woman, and doing nice things for her. And that's just not, that's not really authentic. Not at all. Not at all. Yes, thank you, Uncle Guns, for putting up my links. Appreciate you. So yeah, let's talk about this. Let's see here. Yeah, all right, that's fine. So when a man, he can learn techniques, memorize positions, he can study things like tantra or practice breathing, and still remain forgettable in a woman's body. And, you know, I was thinking about how there's, like, these different levels, okay, and it shows, like, where a guy is, right? So, like, say, like, a young guy, he'll be on the level of just trying to get a woman to notice him. And so he thinks it's all about looks, right? It's all about a nice jawline. It's all about having, you know, really sharp style, having a good Instagram account or whatever, just to get the attention or the curiosity of a girl. Okay. Then once that is established, what's next after that? Communication. So after that gets more regular, then it becomes, oh, well, that's not that important. Really, the deal is it's all about communication. How you communicate with a girl, how to get in her head, how to affect her mind and her emotions and things like that. You know, and then guys who are, like, kind of past that, and they'll say they're regularly talking to girls, but now they're having sex with girls. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, how do we, you know, make this into the thing? And so now their awareness goes into the sex. They're not really concerned about their looks, because that's been dealt with, or their communication, they got that down. Now they're trying to figure out, like, how to be a good lover. Okay. and to be an unforgettable lover. And then the people who have done that enough and they're like, okay, I'm moving beyond that level, then it goes into more deeper, like psychological and emotional things, where it says like, well, because the girl could like have sex with this one guy and it's great and all, but then she'll just quickly hop over to some other dude, right? Forget about guy A, and now she's into guy B, and next can then maybe guy C, and so on. And they think it has something to do with her, that she's broken or something like that. And that's not entirely the case. Maybe sometimes it's the case, but what really is the deal is he hasn't gone far enough yet into understanding how to more deeply affect the mind and emotions, the spirit, deeper psychology, to the point where like all other guys vanish and all she can really think about is you. And and this can go even further, right? Because then there's kind of like the dissolving of ego, and then she's not like, I'm into you, that I starts kind of getting thinner, and now they start embodying just an entity. They're an entity that represents a certain I don't know, like a certain position, a certain life force, a certain like archetype almost. And that's what they are, right? And so the individuation starts kind of getting thinner, starts melting away. And in order to properly do that, the guy has to do the same thing. And he becomes an entity. Like that sense of I also becomes thinner. And I'm sure there's a level beyond that. Okay. But I was just thinking about this, as I was listening to guys talk, and, when they say like, it's all about this. And when they say this, yeah, it's all about your style. I'm like, oh, well, clearly for you it is, because that's the level that you're at. Like, you're not regularly communicating with girls, you're communicating from a distance, and that's the only tool you have at your disposal, right? So you can really tell like where guys are at by the things that they talk about. Okay. And even if they're lying, because you cannot lie about something that you don't have any awareness of its existence, right? Anyways, so let's go back to this here. So part about still remaining forgettable in a woman's body. And so moving on here, because what makes a man unforgettable isn't the tactic or the skill. It's the presence that he brings into the moment. The dominant lover is not defined by how well he performs emotion, but by the atmosphere he creates around her nervous system. Masculine presence is not a pose. It's a state of internal gravity that draws a woman out of her thinking mind and into her erotic instinct. A woman opens when she feels a man anchored. She unfolds when she senses he is directing the moment. She lets go when she feels she doesn't have to think anymore. That is the essence of masculine presence in sex. The man becomes the still point that the entire encounter forms around. When a woman is with a man who carries that center, she relaxes in ways she didn't know were possible. Her breath deepens, her body softens, her eyes change. She becomes more responsive because her system recognizes a leadership strong enough to guide her deeper than she can guide herself. And this is something that I've said before, that the opening up, the more advanced levels of vulnerability cannot be achieved by herself. Like, a woman certainly can become vulnerable to a man to a certain extent. To go beyond that level, she has to allow him to bring her there. And because you cannot be in control and lose control. You cannot bring yourself to the state of losing control, because that requires a guiding hand. So they can go up to the brink, but that's about it. And then beyond that threshold, it requires someone else. So let's see here. I lost my place. So to lead a woman into deeper arousal, a man doesn't start with her body. He starts with her mind, not by talking her into desire, but by giving her brain permission to stop managing the moment. The dominant lover controls the tempo. He controls the emotional tone. He controls the transitions. She only has one job: to feel. And the deeper she feels, the more she obeys her own erotic nature. Arousal for a woman is not a linear climb. It's a spiral that needs containment. When a man rushes, she tightens. When he hesitates, she doubts. But when he is unhurried and intentional, she begins to descend. You don't drag her into deeper arousal. You guide her. And you don't beg her to open. You invite her with your certainty. Your voice, your hands, your eyes, your timing, these become cues her body instinctively references. And when you pull her hair, it's not to startle her. It's to direct her attention downward and into her own heat. When you tell her to look at you, this is not to dominate her vision. It's to anchor her awareness in the moment that you're creating. Every action is a doorway into a deeper version of herself. And this is really something to pay attention to, that when you are engaging with a woman sexually, think of it in those terms, that every action you do, including the things you say, is a doorway into a deeper version of herself. And if you keep this alive as like your main kind of like launching point, or your main reference point, then you can kind of more easily move away from pleasure. You can more easily move away from sex as just pleasure. I mean, sex is always going to be pleasurable. So there's really no need to focus on it. Like, it's always going to feel good to some degree, okay? But when you look at things as you're doing things for other reasons, other than cosplaying or just trying to look cool, or just doing without thinking or understanding, you're missing a lot. And so, if I grab a fistful of my girl's hair and like kind of like crane her face to me while something is happening, right? Like with, say, like I've got a toy in my hand or just my bare hand, and there's something going on with that. There's, she's gonna, the natural thing is to kind of, to spread out, okay? Where her awareness will just spread out and become like immersed in that situation, whatever that physical stimuli is. And that's perfectly fine. Like, that's normal, natural, the way the mind works. But by the grasping of the hair, and which excites certain nerves, but it also can just in a very plain way guides the head to look in a certain way. And then you say, look at me, and you lock eyes and you don't break the gaze at all, okay? And then you can give her further instruction, right? Maybe it's an instruction to say something, or it's just to bring her awareness to her breath, right? And you could just say, synchronize your breathing with mine. And you make your breath really slow and deliberate, okay? But all the while, her body, say with your other hand, is getting extremely aroused, becoming extremely stimulated. So you got this like that then will cause friction, right? Because her body wants to rev up, and usually when that happens, our breathing and our pulse increases. So by then you taking harness of her breathing, you're now kind of like pushing things into a shape by your will, okay? Which will then like undoubtedly drive her emotions deeper into that situation, rather than if you just had no hair pulling, no looking in the eyes, no direction whatsoever, and just focusing on giving her pleasure, okay? And that's perfectly fine, okay? Plenty of people play this way. I play this way. It's totally fine. But do you just understand that you have the opportunity, you have the options to turn this into something that has a more dense shape, a more defined shape that you can push her into, okay? Sort of like taking like a wad of clay and pushing it into some kind of a mold or a tube or something like that. You're kind of making it into this shape, right? And then it has more definition, and then definition can create meaning. And I'm not saying it going to be any sort of meaning that one could articulate, right? But it becomes more meaningful, I guess. And that's where the penetration, of your presence becomes really, really important. It becomes very effective at that point. And then it's not about what you're doing. Like, seriously, all you're doing, like in that example, and there's many examples, so don't think like you have to pull, if you want to do this, you don't have to pull her hair, you don't have to look her in the eyes. I mean, certainly eye contact helps a lot. It creates intensity, and a certain type of connection. But there's many things you can do, all right? So I don't think that's where you have to go to and stop. But it has a tremendous effect, versus if you just kind of like leave things to kind of flow however they go. All right. So let's get back into this. I'm sorry. So when you pull her hair, it's not, I'll just reiterate this last part. It's not to startle her. It's not, and it's to direct her attention downward into her own heat. Okay. Because that brings an awareness of like, oh, this is happening to me in this moment. Okay, but that like the shocking of the nerves in the scalp. When you tell her to look at you, it's not to dominate her vision. It's to anchor her awareness in the moment that you're creating. Every action is a doorway into a deeper version of herself. And even like if, slapping is something that is, consensual and regular in your situations, in your dynamic, like a facial slap can do the same thing as a hair pull. I kind of, as far as this example is concerned, I like the hair pull better because it's more sustained, versus like a slap. It does have that like awakening, here you are now sort of creation, but it's in and out, right? It's not a lasting sensation. I mean, there is like a sting afterwards, but it doesn't have that sustained nervous stimulation as, say, like a grip of hair at the scalp. So this is where many guys lose their footing. They confuse sexual assertiveness with sexual aggression. And assertiveness is deliberate. Aggression is desperate. Assertiveness is grounded. Aggression is reactive. Assertiveness is guided by awareness of her body and her cues. Aggression simply ignores them. A dominant lover does not push past her. He pulls her into himself. He doesn't overpower her boundaries. He expands what she is willing to feel within them. A woman responds to assertiveness because it makes her feel chosen, directed, and safe. Aggression, on the other hand, feels like a man is trying to prove something and take something, and women can smell that insecurity instantly. Assertiveness is the calm confidence that says, I know what I want, I know what I'm doing, and you're coming with me. That tone opens her. Aggression shuts her down. But there is a kind of aggression that works perfectly well, and but it's later on in this. If a man wants to become magnetic, addictive presence in a woman's erotic world, he needs to understand 3 erotic styles that women generally respond to. These are not categories she picks from. They're modes her nervous system cycles through depending on how well he leads her. So the first one is the sensual style. And this is the one that awakens her body slowly. This is the man who touches her with intention, not as stepping stone towards sex, but as its own experience. He kisses her in a way that makes her forget where the rest of the room is. He doesn't rush her. He builds pressure. He creates a slow burn that makes her crave being taken. Women respond to the sensual style because it lets their minds unwind and their bodies warm into desire without being jolted or rushed. The primary energy behind or the intention behind a sensual style is tension control. But it's not tension control that causes anxiety or fear or despair. It's tension through anticipation. And so this is the sort of thing, like, let's say, let's see a guy who really enjoys giving oral sex, and you are making your way up her legs, like starting at her feet, you're kissing or licking, going up her feet, and just really taking your time and lingering, and she knows what you're going. She knows what you're planning on doing, but you're taking your sweet ass time getting there, and just stopping in various parts, almost to not just to linger for the sake of causing anticipation, but more so like you're caught up in the appreciation of certain body parts. Almost like how a sculptor would stop and just look at the thigh or the knee of a marble sculpture, something like that, and slowly making her way. And then once you get there, she's like, oh, like finally he's at my pussy at long last. And you still don't go in. You like start kissing around the vulva, just kissing around the lips, and like purposely staying away from the clit, and until she's like trying to like move her body subtly, like trying to like chase your mouth to put things in the right place, and yes, it's a bit of sadism, okay, but it's like kind of like wrapped in silk, right? It's like sadism wrapped in silk. And that's kind of how you got to think about it, where you're torturing her, but with the most loving hands possible. It's torturing her from like an energetic level, not like an actual physical or overt way. All right. And this is how you should be thinking about the sensual style. All right. The next one is the commanding style, and the one that pulls her into obedience through tone, direction, and confidence. It's the man who knows how to say, come here, in a way that rearranges her chemistry. He enters her space with clarity, and her body answers. He doesn't ask for permission to lead. He simply leads. This style triggers the deep feminine instinct to surrender to a man she trusts and respects. When you embody this style, she becomes more responsive, more vocal, and more naturally submissive, not because you forced it, but because you unlocked it. And this one has everything to do with your own confidence. If she can sense your doubt, it's not going to work. Like, you can't have a commanding style, or you can't exercise the commanding style if you have doubt in yourself. This is it's really, really not going to work, and you're gonna look and you're gonna feel like a fraud. So you really have to believe in yourself, let go of the doubt, and understands that this is an aspect of sexuality that women really enjoy. They really enjoy hearing not only the commands themselves, but hearing it in a tone and in a, like, with being motivated by a particular energy that is very confident, and part of the confidence has to do with not even thinking about whether she's going to protest or push back, right? Because that little bit of awareness, like kind of like glancing over your shoulder to see if she has balked at the situation and she's putting up resistance, right? You have to go in with full conviction, and not a forceful conviction, right? Calm conviction. And there's very simple commands that you can do that I've covered before that are very easy. And the reason why they're easy is because they're things that people do in the bedroom anyways. And this would be, I just mentioned come here. That's a very simple one. Kneel. This is something that's, girls are on their knees in various situations in the bedroom. So that's not out of the ordinary. Take off your clothes or get undressed. Or strip. That's pretty normal, right? People usually have sex naked. Bend over. That's another one. Doggy style is pretty damn common. And open, right? people usually open their mouths at some point, either to give oral sex or to kiss or to breathe or to moan or whatever. And you can just say open, and you can string them together. Take off your clothes, come here, kneel, open, now bend over. Right? Like that's whatever you want. Okay. You don't have to string them together, but I'm just saying, like, they're very, very easy, and they're not out of the ordinary when it comes to things that are done in the bedroom. So you're not telling her to, like, I don't know, grab like a cucumber from the refrigerator and start making herself gag. Like, that's not like typical bedroom stuff, even for today. So those are some very simple commands that you can give. I'm almost 100% certain that the girl will respond well to this, and especially if you do it with that calm conviction that you're unafraid of her possibly not liking it. That's not even in your awareness at all. Then that's really how it has to be, from a genuine perspective. Like, you are not, and you're not like resisting it, like, fuck what she has to say, like, because that's still awareness. I'm saying no awareness. You're doing it because this is what you want to do. And that is how the commanding style truly works. And it's really the only way it works to its fullest, is to completely give in to the spirit of that and trust yourself. All right. And the more you trust yourself, she will feel it and she'll trust you. So that when you say, take off your clothes, crawl over here on your hands and knees and open your mouth, there's so much trust that she can feel in your tone and your comfort that she's like, yes, sir. And she does this. Or yes, daddy. And she does this. And if you want to increase the tension, okay, because this does have a certain type of tension, it also is a bit sadistic, but not as much as the sensual one. It's sadistic in a different kind of way, because of the positioning of your emotional state, because you're not in a state of consideration, right? And that's the type of tension that it creates. The sadism lies in that, where it's basically like, I'm not really considering so much of like, oh no, like, the floor's hard. Is she gonna, like, is that gonna hurt her knees? Nothing like that. Okay. And you're just primarily focused on, this is what I want. And there's a bit of like sadistic energy in that. All right. And that's okay. Not all sadistic, the word gets a bad rap. It's had a bad rap for hundreds of years, or a couple hundred years. I think that it came about with like the Marquis de Sade. So, and since then, it's always had this like negative slant to it, but it really doesn't have to, right? It's just one more color on your palette. So moving on, the third one is the primal style. And this is what I was talking about with aggression. The primal style, the one that ignites her raw animal nature, this is not aggression. This is her intensity without chaos, purpose without frenzy, hunger without loss of control. Sorry, I just had to check something. It's the energy that makes her feel claimed, devoured, overwhelmed, in the exact way that awakens the most ancient part of her, sexuality. When done correctly, the primal style brings her into ecstatic, uninhibited state, where she stops filtering herself. She claws, she moans, she aches, she trembles. Not because you told her to, but because you stirred the part of her that doesn't speak words. And this is sometimes a difficult place for girls to get to, because to be uninhibited means that their brain has turned off, and it's quite difficult for a woman to turn her brain off. This can be brought about in a number of different ways, but I would say that it begins with you. It begins with you entering a certain state and her feeling comfortable following you there. And it's not going to work if you command it, right? It's something that she must feel and step into, not something that she just follows like an order. You can't command her to unleash her primal nature. Like, it doesn't make sense, okay? Because it's a simpler mind. It's not about making decisions at all. It's not about thinking. It's about just pure feeling. And so that's why it can be difficult. There's ways you can go about it through, say, like certain emotional stimulation. You can bring her through this by way of physical stimulation, sometimes as pain, bringing her into sort of like the fight or flight type mentality. But mixed with arousal, it becomes this other thing. So there is a bit of aggression that's used here, right? It's not assertiveness, it's aggression, but it's controlled aggression. And this is part of the responsibility part that comes with being a dominant, is that she might be able to lose control. She might be able to fully just lose herself, no sense of time, space, or identity. And she's just this thing that's acting. And that's fine. But we don't have that luxury. We can come close, but there must be always a piece of our awareness that hasn't lost it, right? That hasn't just been thrown into the fray. And this is so that we can monitor things. We can make sure that someone's not getting physically injured or emotionally injured. There's just safety involved, because sometimes this stuff can get intense. It can get into like almost fighting one another. And I'm not talking like closed fists, like MMA ground pound sort of stuff, but more of like how an animal, like two tigers would be fighting each other. And this I've seen, and it's, you'd think that it's some sort of uncontrolled thing, but someone, typically the top or the dominant, there's a piece of their awareness that's not sunken in, that's standing to the side and kind of making sure that everything's okay. And that's just one of the sacrifices that we have to take on as leaders. We don't get the privilege of just losing ourselves into something. And that's okay, right? I kind of actually like that. I like this idea, just the whole notion of it, that like this whole shit is mine to manage. And other guys, they're going to feel like that is a burden, and that's unfortunate, because I don't see it as a burden. I think it's incredibly creative. I don't know. I just think it's great. I love every aspect of it. But now there's like a fourth level. And this is about the skilled dominant lover. And he knows how to move between all three styles seamlessly. And so this is, he knows how to use the sensual style to open her. He can shift into the commanding style to take her. He can step into the primal when her body is ready to be undone. And he can kind of shift between them, right? So kind of get into like say a very like intense, like primal sort of thing where there's, say like scratches or growls, bites, slaps, and things like that. And she's like slammed up to the wall. And then there's a shift, right? Where like there's a very firm grasp around the throat or of the hair. And now there's a shift. Look at me. And she's like snapped into this other reality where now she has this awareness of like her whole body, that awareness was lost into the whole, everything that was happening in that primal state. Okay. She was part of everything. And now you've snapped her back into her body as this separate awareness amongst she was experiencing. And then you can start bringing in, other sensual things, right? And start like shifting through these different types of energies, the sensual, the commanding, and the primal. And you can move them around as much as you want, but you can't be like all willy-nilly about it. Like, you kind of have to think about it in terms of like creative strategy, so like a painter, even Jackson Pollock, who's known for like throwing paint, like I've watched videos of him paint, and he was actually planning it, like not like with sketches beforehand, but he would like do a little something and he'd step back and kind of walk around, because his paintings were done on the floor, and he would just kind of look around and be like, thinking and feeling and listening to the, usually it's jazz that he was listening to, and then he kind of throw some more, grab a different color, think about it, throw some more. And so it looks haphazard, right? His creation, but he was thinking about it the entire time. He was feeling his way through it. And that's an awareness that you have to build, to both feel yourself, but then also feel where she's at, and understanding like where she's, where her tipping points are, and, feeling out her emotional states, her psychological states, and her physical states, right? Because maybe, let's say you go very far with something that's primal, and her central nervous system is getting peaked out, okay? You can't just keep going, all right? I mean, I suppose you could, but then you possibly throw her deep into subspace, and then she's just this non-responsive, like, zombie. I mean, she's like this bliss zombie. And that's perfectly fine, right? It happens, okay? But if you want to like continue playing and engaging and having fun and doing different stuff, you don't need like a limp rag doll, you know what I'm saying? Who's all like blissed out on some other plane. You need somebody who's conscious enough to have that interplay. So say in that sort of situation, you have to be aware that you don't peak out her central nervous system and then push beyond that level. You kind of have to just, again, always watching, paying attention. And this is how you're able to shift and make different creative choices. So I think if you consider like that first part that I was talking about with the opening her into like doorways that push her into like deeper versions of herself, or invite her into different versions of herself, along with this creative strategic type thinking, you can get a lot out of it. Okay. You can even go very linear. You can go like starting off with sensual and then move into commanding and then go into primal. You can absolutely do that, but you don't have to. Not at all. Really, because that's the great thing about creativity, is that there's no real set rules. I mean, unless you're dealing with like an old tradition like painting, like, and yes, there's fucking rules. So a skilled dominant lover, hang on a sec. So a skilled dominant lover knows how to move between all of these different styles seamlessly. Okay. And most guys, they remain stuck in one style and wonder why their lover never really blooms. And this is the thing, because women are dynamic, and that's just the way they are. Okay. So if you're just that sensual lover, cool, like that's great, but you're missing out on like a lot of her psychology that can be tapped into. If you're just someone who's just into like commands, right? And you're just this commanding guy, but you're lacking in that sensuality, that's going to be tough, because there's a great deal of eroticism to the coldness of the commander, right? There absolutely is, but it's kind of stiff. There's rigidness to it. Although there's a lot of eroticism to that rigidness, but if that's all there is, well, then it's limited. And same with the primal. Like the primal just moves off of instinct, and that's great, but there's no planning. There's no vision. It's just pure reaction and feeling. And so, and certainly it's not sensual, right? It's just, I want to consume, I want to devour, I want to like just rip her into pieces. And that's great, right? But you're missing out on a wide variety of different things. So with each one, if you only have one, it's like having just like a couple of colors on your palette. Versus if you bring them all in, you can have all of the colors. All right. And you can create all kinds of interesting paintings with that. So that said, basically women need range. They need polarity and different kinds of polarity. And that's the thing. The primal, the commander, the sensual, they all produce a certain type of polarity. And women enjoy all of them. I might go so far as to say that they need all of them. And that doesn't mean that you just give it away. Okay. Remember, everything you give is earned. All right. To the point, it can be to the point where she's just an open canvas, that's like free use sort of thing where she trusts you implicitly to express herself however you like. And that's great, but that takes time to build. But until that point, everything is earned. You're not just like kind of giving all this stuff away for free. So they need polarity, they need depth. One-dimensional men create one-dimensional experiences. So just consider that. What separates an average lover from a dominant lover is simply awareness. You watch her breathing, her hips, her thighs, her eyes. You pay attention to how her body responds to your voice, your pace, your intensity. You don't adjust out of fear. You adjust out of mastery. Your job is to read her responses and steer her direction, not abandon the lead every time she shifts away from something. Okay? So when you do this well, she never has to think about whether she's performing correctly. She simply reacts to you, and the moment becomes self-propelling. The deeper truth is this. A woman does not surrender to a man in bed because he's skilled. She surrenders because she feels his presence filling the space between every touch. She feels the intention behind each action. She feels the steadiness of his center and the command in his desire. She feels him leading her into parts of herself she cannot reach alone. And that's when sex becomes transformational for her. That's when she bonds. That's when she remembers him. To be a dominant lover is not to dominate her body. It's to dominate the moment, shape the energy, and orchestrate the space where her surrender becomes inevitable. A woman wants to be led, not pressured. She wants to be opened, not rushed. She wants the man to feel the man's hunger, not his insecurity. And when she feels the man who carries himself with this level of presence, certainty, and erotic leadership, she gives him the highest compliment a woman can give, which is her letting go. And once she lets go for a man like that, she never forgets him. And, if she keeps letting go, and keeps letting go and keeps letting go, she almost like becomes like a part of him, or he becomes part of her. And that's the thing about these guys who are concerned with body counts and soul ties and microchimerism and shit like that, like stuff that actually doesn't exist. This exists. Like these are bonds that actually exist. These are things that I've experienced, that I am experiencing, and that I've taught my guys to experience, like with their wives, their girlfriends. This is real. Okay. These are real bonds. Like you want to talk about pair bonding, like how, all the red pillar guys and, Roll Tomasi saying this about pair bonding and all that stuff. This is real pair bonding. This is, if you want to bring up another one like the alpha widowed, like this is what creates the alpha widow, where she's like, oh my gosh, I don't even know who I am anymore because of my experience of this man. And the thing is that, once you, I guess maybe I'm only speaking for myself, but once you're able to kind of open those doorways, like, you know, you go down, open a doorway, you go down further, you open a doorway, and further, deeper and deeper, doorway after doorway. And she's kind of like losing more and more of herself into you, into your containment. I just can't see, like, after a couple doorways being like, yeah, all right, I'm going to go for another one, like a different girl over here. Okay. Because I know myself. Now, this is not a prescription for other guys. I just know myself. And I can say that I enjoy going deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay. I don't like to go wide. I'm really just not into that. I've had my time going wide, and it's not entirely satisfying. It really isn't. I like watching that transformation that you know, that I was just describing. That transformation, you know, where I'm leading her and I can see it happening in real time, where I'm bringing her to a place that she can't reach on her own. Like, she can't reach that level of trust, that level of safety, that level of like emotional release, that emotional freedom by herself. She can't do it. I mean, maybe with like certain like psychedelic drugs, possibly, but still, that's not on her own. There's something helping. Okay. So, you know, if it's on me, if I'm that psychedelic drug, then that's what I like to see. I like to see the things, the result of my presence and my creative tinkering. Okay. Because I do treat these things as like creative tinkering. What if I do this? What if I kind of pull these levers or these strings and see what happens, you know? And I like to see the results, you know. I guess that's like the putting on my alchemist hat and seeing what happens if I mix this and a little bit of this, right? And I can't do that if I like start something and then just shift to another thing, right? So I'm not the type anymore to kind of like shift from person to person. It's very difficult. I would say 2 at most. I would be able to kind of lead and influence on a deep level 2 girls at most, because it does take time. It takes time training on your own if you need to learn certain things, and like awareness, paying attention to stuff, testing, observing, and pushing where you need to push, not, you know, laying off where you need to lay off, and just the time it takes and the amount of like energy, awareness, that sort of stuff, that I can't see myself doing this with more than 2 girls for an extended period of time, while also running 2 businesses and, you know, all the other things that I have going on in my life. Like, I mean, maybe if I was like independently wealthy and had no other responsibilities, but then I don't know, I think I would just spend more time riding motorcycles. To be honest, you know, as much as I love this stuff, you know, it's like, it's very, very interesting to me. You know, I probably wouldn't take on more girls just because I had more time. I'd be like, yeah, those roads are calling me, you know? And, you know, but I do fantasize about the idea of that story and movie called The Story of O. If anyone's ever seen that, anyone's ever seen The Story of O, it's good. I mean, it's old, so be prepared. It's not made very well. But yeah, this girl comes in and she just becomes like this slave to this guy who's in this mansion, and there's other slave girls that are there. And I don't know, it's a pretty interesting movie. I would recommend it. But yeah, like, if I don't know, if I was independently wealthy, maybe I'd do that, but I think I'd still get bored. I'm like, dude, I'm like, you know, but then again, like, I would have people that work for me, you know, I have like other doms that are around to kind of like be the middle management. And then I'd say, okay, you guys are dealing with this shit. I'm going riding for the day, or the next few days, going camping, or something along those lines. So, yes. All right. Yeah. Unfortunately, my sub is not feeling very well. So it's that time of year, people get sick, flus and colds and infections and things like that. So yep. Okay, well, that's all I really came to share. If anybody has any questions, certainly feel free to ask them now. Give you a couple minutes. There was this post that I just saw that was interesting. I was going to read it, but here it is. Yeah, there's this interesting post on Instagram, chatting with the Lightkeeper. I don't even know who that is, but I think I'm following them. But this is their advice, before calling yourself a dominant, here are 5 things I wish more people understood. 1, dominance is not a form of performance art. It's not something you switch on to look the part. It's how you handle leadership, trust, and yourself when no one is watching. 2, dominance requires emotional maturity. If you cannot manage your emotions, you are not ready to lead another. Dominance is not about suppressing your emotions, but striving to navigate them in healthy ways. 3, you are not owed anything because you call yourself dominant. A title without substance means nothing. Calling yourself dominant does not entitle you to access, attention, or authority. 4, you lead a submissive, but they remain their own person. Leadership does not mean erasure, because DS thrives when individuality is respected. 5, trust takes time to earn. It is not just handed out because one calls themselves dominant. Trust comes from showing up over and over, not showing off. And I would agree with that. I would agree with these things. And the only thing that I would say is the 4th one here. You lead a submissive, but they remain their own person. This, I would say, is true to a certain extent. But if you've developed the amount of trust involved for a submissive to move on from a submissive into a slave, then they really don't remain their own person anymore. And that requires a lot of courage, a lot of trust, and a lot of skill, like a lot of different types of skills, not just like physical skills that you can show, but like mental skills, communication skills, emotional skills, energetic skills. And it's not for the faint of heart at all. And it requires the dominant or the master in that case to really, really know what the fuck they're doing. Because for someone to kind of let go of their autonomy to that degree, it requires somebody who can hold that, right? So it's enticing, the idea of it. It's very, very enticing. It's a sexy thought, isn't it? But there's a lot of fucking responsibility with that. And if you fuck up, the blowback could be unrepairable, like psychologically unrepairable. So, and some of these things, and that's kind of like just what you have to take into consideration. And I'm not talking about the unrepairable type of damage, but there is potential for damage, right? Because in this lifestyle, you're not dealing with just like wooden plaques that have live, laugh, love written on them. You know what I mean? You're not dealing with like shopping together at the Container Store. You're dealing with like hardcore like psychological and emotional stuff. And so the opportunity for, or the chance for there to be emotional injury, psychological injury, or physical injury are there. That's very real. And this is why we build such dialogues and narratives around safety, around emotional safety, physical safety. That's why there are all these acronyms, like SSC, RAC, PRIC, FRIES, like all of these things. They're all various acronyms that have to do with safety and consent and all that stuff. Because, like, think about it. Like, there's some people, like I saw one of these things where I was like, holy shit, like I would never be able to do that. Where this guy was in a vinyl bed sheet, basically. Okay, but he was in the sheet, and there was a vacuum attachment to it, and so you hook it up to a vacuum, and then he gets like kind of sealed inside this, and there's just a little rubber hose sticking out. So the sheet has like this hose sticking out, and his mouth can kind of go on that. And then the dom or the master or the sadist or whatever, they flick on the vacuum, and it sucks out all the air in that vinyl bed sheet or pillow or like casing that he's in. And when it's suctioned, there is no movement. Like, I don't care how fucking strong you are not pulling out of that. There's no fucking way. You can't sit up, you can't move, you can't do anything except breathe out of this little fucking hose. Like if they just put their finger over the end of that, like, you're screwed. Tremendous amount of trust, and the possibility of injury is there. Okay. And this is just stuff that you have to be mindful of. And you might be thinking, well, geez, all I'm doing is spanking her with a little paddle. Like, what? I'm not stuffing her in a vinyl bed sheet and sucking out all the air. Yes, that is true. However, I've caused, without even knowing it, I've caused deep muscle tissue damage by using a paddle. And like you will fuck up. Just know this. Like, you will make mistakes. You will fuck up. You will make her cry, and not the good kind of tears. You will like crack trust. You will sow little seeds of doubt. You will physically harm her. You will emotionally harm her or psychologically harm her. And it's because we're not perfect. We do our best to educate ourselves and practice and become, confident leaders that are not ham-fisted and, overly passionate or filled with ego, so that we can lead cleanly. But we're not perfect. We're not robots. And in that, things may happen, and the chances for them to happen are there. And they will. I didn't think I was going to make that kind of mistake, but I did. And it caused for treatments that took months to repair, because it caused the muscle. It's like a deep tissue muscle in the buttock, and it caused like a freezing. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of like the symptom called frozen shoulder, and the muscles deep in the tissue, they lock up, and like the person, like, they can't raise their arm above parallel to the ground. They can't just go up like this. It's just stuck. And so she was doing PT, right? She was doing PT, she was doing acupuncture, massage, all sorts of stuff. And it was taking, and then stuff that I was doing. And it took months for these muscles to finally release the tension that they got holding. And that was because I was using a paddle. And I typically don't use wooden paddles. And wood, because it's like thicker, it creates like a thudding sort of feeling. And I'm not really into that kind of impact play, but I was just testing it out. And that's the thing, like, you can the flexible impact toys, like whips, floggers, like anything that's like very flexible and flowy, you can really swing those. Okay. And yes, you can like sometimes even cut the skin, but it's still on the surface. It stings, right? But if you use something heavier, like maybe a thicker stick, or a wooden paddle, with the same kind of force or similar force, what it does is, by the nature of it, because it's not flexible, it sends shock waves deep into the tissue. And that's where damage occurs that you can't readily see on the surface. Maybe like a little bit of bruising, but then like a couple days later, she's like, oh fuck, like I can't like bend my hip in a certain way. It's like absolutely frozen and painful. And so, you know, that's where the physical therapy comes in, and, you know, all that stuff. And it's like, I didn't fucking know, you know, I didn't realize, like, I just wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't realizing the physics that were happening there. You know, so if I do have some like rigid impact, it's usually thinner stuff like canes. I like canes, thinner sticks. I've got like some plastic, like thinner sticks that I like because you can bend them so they're like in between flexible and stiff. I've got some wooden, like thicker ones that are about like an inch in diameter, and that's about it. So I was playing with paddles and I created an injury that I didn't expect that I was going to create. So just keep that in mind. Oh, here she is. What's up, kitten? Kitten with the sore throat. What's the most number of subs you've ever had? Why do you care? It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It means nothing to being a good man or a good dom. It doesn't matter, because you could have 25 and be a shitty fucking dom, where it's just this revolving door, and you could have 2 who stick by you for years and years, serving you every single day, feeling fulfilled every single day, right? So it's not about volume, it's about quality. And this is what we try to cultivate here, you know, because then it's just the nature of it, the nature of power dynamics, because they're just so thick, you know, with just all the things that go into it. You'll be missing out. Like, you can't get out of BDSM what you can get out of BDSM by skipping across the surface. Like, oh great, you tied up some girl and you spanked her, woohoo, you know, and you did that 20 times, great, right? You're not doing it. You're missing out on so much, not only of the things you can like bring about as experiences, but your own development, right? Because in order to go deeper into these things, you have to be the one who can. And if you've got insecurities, if you've got fears, if you're holding on to anger or rage or pain or judgment or preconceptions or some sort of fucking weird ego thing, you're not gonna be able to do it. It has to be the right shape to go into the passageway that leads to deeper things. And if your shape isn't the wrong shape, well, then it's not happening. You know, it's just the way it goes, you know. It kind of reminds me of that, I'm not a Christian, but I remember that phrase, something about like the eye of a needle, rich man can, what's the eye of a needle? Eye of the needle Bible verse. Mark 10:25. Truly I tell you, it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. So it's something along those lines. Like, in order to get into the kingdom, you have to have a particular shape, and that shape is, you know, not being a rich man in that case, but, you know, to go into the deeper pathways of power exchange and BDSM, it requires of you to be a certain way, a certain shape, so to speak. And, you know, trying to force it or remain as you are without transforming is, you know, you'll have an easier time pushing a camel through the eye of a needle. Yeah. Hey, Danny, you're welcome. Thank you. Appreciate you, man. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's about it, right? We picked that apart pretty good. I hope you learned stuff. Take it with you, put it in your back pocket, and just know that you're not going to progress if you just sit around and sit around and wait for the sure thing, or just do a lot of mental masturbation when it comes to theory and ideas and cool shit that sounds nice, you're not going to get anywhere. Like, you have to literally go out and take action, get off of fucking dating apps, and talk to girls in public. Like, that's what you have to do. You have to get out. You have to be social. Like, if you want to be able to express yourself, all right, it's not going to work. If you want to become a painter, you need a canvas, right? You can get all the paints, you can get all the brushes, you can watch all the instructional videos, you can read all the books, you can take the classes, but if you don't have a canvas sitting in front of you, what the fuck good are all those things? I mean, they're not completely useless, because, knowledge is great. It's great to amass knowledge, but you're just basically sitting on it. It's going to get dusty if there's not a canvas present so that you can express these things. So in the same way that a woman cannot lead herself to this type of psychological, emotional, and physical liberation on her own, it requires the hand of another. You flip that. Then in order to express yourself, of bringing about that liberation, you need someone to liberate. You need someone to fill that position so that you can do the things that you do and have fun doing it. Like, that's what it is. The yin and the yang, they have the counterparts. It's not just like one black part or one white part. It's both. Both is required. Okay. Oh, I know. I can already hear her thoughts. She's wishing she's sitting on my lap right now. Yes. In good time. In good time. Be patient. Okay, so that's it. Yeah, of course. Yes, you got to get your reps in. Like, you can't get fit. Well, you can get fit if you don't go to the gym. There's other ways, but yes, just get out and engage yourself with women in like real time, in physical space, in the atmosphere. You're not going to solve this by remaining in your home. You're not going to solve this online. And I know that's hard, especially for younger guys who they've grown up in the online space. Like, I get it. I have an advantage. I grew up before there was internet. And to me, the only way of meeting a girl was to actually go and meet her. That's the only option. And I know it's hard. Like, yes, it's cold. It's the cold months. Okay. But like, get yourself involved in stuff and do, like meetup.com. Is that a thing still? But like, look for activities, look for different things happening in your town or your city. Do some research, okay, of like fun, cool things that are happening, and go and do them. And if there's girls that happen to be there, great, talk to them. Don't just be like, oh man, I made it to this thing, and like, I'm just gonna like stare at her awkwardly for the next 2 hours. Like, you're wasting your time. You could be dead tomorrow. All right. Just do something. Do something about it. Okay. That's what's necessary. So, how do I do this? Anyways. Okay. Thank you guys for joining me here this evening. I appreciated you. And perhaps catch me tomorrow. It's not set in stone, but 12 o'clock noon Eastern Standard Time, I'm going to be with the Manhood is a Skill Set show. And Manhood Skill Set show, I'll be hanging with those guys, talking about whatever. Okay. Having a good time. Oh, no. Socially inept and grew up being sheltered, definitely need to get up the reps. Well, just keep telling yourself that, and that's going to be the reality that you live in. right? If you keep saying, I'm socially inept, okay, great, you're socially inept. I grew up being sheltered. Cool. Now you have an excuse to keep staying where you are because you have a plausible deniability, right? And definitely need to get up the reps. Okay, so now you keep saying, becoming one of those I'm gonnas, right? I'm gonna do this. You ever hear those guys? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna publish a book. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna get a new job. I'm gonna, and they never do shit. So just vanish and stop talking, or do something, because nobody gives a fuck, right? Like, you have to be the only one, and you are the only one who gives a fuck. So either like be quiet about the excuses and just vanish, or do something. That's it. It's really that simple. The samurai, either draw the fucking sword completely out of its scabbard, or don't. That's it. It's not complicated stuff. I'm socially inept. So, okay, fine. Then do nothing. Roll over. Just, just roll over. Or you can just draw the sword. That's what things come down to. So, like, first and only like major piece of advice that I remembered from my dad told me when I was a little kid. He said, Justin, life is a series of choices, and that's about it. And it is. That's all life is. It's a series of choices. So make your choices and don't sit there and wonder, is this the right one? Just make them. Deal with the consequences after. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me here this evening. I'm going to make some tea and then pop into my buddy's space on X and be more of a consumer than an educator. But let's face it, I'm always educating. All right, until next time, thank you for joining me. Take it easy.